So over the last couple of years, I've done a couple of videos on my favourite snare drums, and they kind of went down quite well. So I thought I'd do one on kits, because I've never done one. I've never done one on my my favourite drum kits. I think at the moment I've got about 20 drum kits. I know that might seem a little bit strange to say, but I've had one or two go out. I've had a couple more come in. And I'm not actually sure how many drum kits I have at the time of recording this. It's about 20, but it might be slightly more. I'm honestly not sure. Somewhere between 20 and 22, 22 being the absolute maximum. And I'm not sure it's actually that high. But anyway, I've done this. I've done a sort of drafts of this video a couple of times. I've not released them, but I kind of felt that they weren't quite right. So I thought I'd just do it again anyway now. One of the things I did do in the previous drafts was I broke these kits down into sort of different headings on how I sort of view them. But I don't think there's really any point to that. It doesn't really make any difference. So I think the first kit is my regular gigging kit, which is the pearl wood fiberglass. The Kapua shells. I can't remember the thickness actually. How many plies? I want to say it's 7 ply. But they're Kapua shells, and they've got a thin wrap of fiberglass on the inside of the shell. Unsurprisingly, that's where the name comes from. Now, the reason why I like this kit, I've never really had a bad experience with these drums. I got them about 3 years ago, and I originally picked up the 10, 12, 16 with a 22, 16 kick drum. And I enjoyed those drums so much that I ended up buying the matching 14 by 6.5 snare drum. And then Pearl actually do another... I think it's kind of like this same basic type of drum, albeit in a technically slightly different finish, but not so different that you would really notice. And that's in a 15 by 6.5. So I got that. And then the tail end of 2019, I found that you could actually order, you could back order some of these drums, despite the fact that they were only available. Technically, I think it was for like the 1 year in 2017. So I back ordered some, and I got one. So I back ordered a 14 by 14 floor tom, which turned up last year, and then I also ordered just after that. I ordered an 8 by whatever it is rack tom, and that turned up in January of this year, and ever since. The 8 turned up. I've actually been using 8, 10, 16, or I have actually used 8, 10, 14 as well on my gigging setup up until the point where, you know, all that went up in the air. And I was really enjoying that setup. What I'm going to do in the very near future is I'm going to stick all of the drums up together, because I've not done that. But I just love the sound of that kit. I've never had a problem with it. I've got it. Basically, it doesn't get touched. I've got I was using originally 12 and 16, and I got the 12 and the 16 internally mic'd with an Audix D2 and an Audix D4 in them. But what I found is when I went to the 8 and 10, it was better to actually externally mic the 16 just to get the same sort of sound in my ears and going out the front. But they're great fun to play. I really enjoy them. I think for what is essentially a fairly intermediate level kit, the wood fibre line as a whole is kind of one of those standalone sort of lines, just like the Crystal Beat, the acrylic drums as well. Pearl has done them as sort of their own standalone thing, where obviously you have like the export, and then it it goes up in a sort of a hierarchy and everything, up to like the reference and everything. But these are like just standalone lines by themselves, and I really like those drums. They've got the super hoops on them as well on all the toms. So for what is not really an expensive line of drums. I really think they're great, and I did actually recommend them to someone fairly recently. And the finish as well. The finish is like satin cocoa or something along those lines. I can never remember what it is. But it just, you know, they look. I think they look a lot more expensive than they actually were, and I love them for that. And that's really, I mean, I bought it to be my gigging working kit, and that's pretty much what it's been ever since I got them. And it's one kit I will never get rid of. Moving along, and these next couple of kits are kind of more sentimental for me more than anything else. I've talked about, I think certainly these next few, I've talked about them in the respective videos. I've talked about how much I wanted them in two instances for decades. But the first one is the Tama Granstar, and it's, well, I don't know, quite often the camera's sort of slightly over this angle, and you can see a drum over here in cherry rose, which is the same finish as my Granstar. The drum there is actually not a Granstar, it's a Rockstar Pro, also in cherry rose. I wanted a Granstar in cherry rose ever since I first saw Gary Wallace and Mark Price playing for Nick Kershaw in 1986, I think it was, and I was just completely like, I just love the look of those drums. And I just always wanted it. Took me, I don't know how many years. I picked that kit up about 3 and a bit years ago now. And they're all in player's condition, but it suits me fine. I mean, that, 30-plus-year-old drum kit, it's never going to be really in pristine condition. When I bought that kit off of eBay, I literally had the guy's whole kit, all bar sticks. It had a seat with it, had a hi-hat stand, which, an old 80s Tama hi-hat stand, a snare stand. He basically had most of one of the big house racks, which I actually also used to rock in the early 90s when I was young and stupid. Not like I am now. And it came with a Rockstar Pro snare drum, but the drums, it was the toms and the kick drum that most fascinated me. And I got an 11-inch tom with that kit, which was cool in itself. But the toms on that kit are 11, 12, 14, 16. It was originally 11, 12, 14 mounted toms, but I basically took the mount off the 14 and made it a floor tom on a rims mount, so it's 2 up, 2 down. And I just love those drums. I've got I want to say clear Emperors on everything except for the 11, which will be clear Ambassador. And I just love those drums. They mean so much to me. And as I said, it took me decades to get the things. But and Phil Gould was actually another one whose playing I always loved in the 80s. And he also used to use an 11-inch tom as well. It was only pure by accident that I got an 11-inch tom with that kit. But wonderful set of drums, and I absolutely love them. So the second kit, which I wanted for decades, was the Tama Artstar II in white. I won't go on too much about that one because I only did a video on that a few months ago. Suffice to say, similar sort of thing with the Granstar. I just always wanted a white Artstar II kit. Now originally those drums were actually blue, and I had them rewrapped in white simply because the finish was showing its age. But those Artstars, 10, 11, 13, 14, 16, 22. I did the same thing with the 14. And to have 2 11-inch toms, I mean, I thought it was daft enough having one, but I have 2, and I saw someone the other day who apparently has 6. So I'm never going to be able to top that one, but yeah. But again, I just love those drums. I love the way they sound. I think probably looking at the way they sound from that video I did, I think the 10 still needs a little bit of a tweak, but overall wonderful drums. Love playing them. Love having them. Special mention, I think, to my my Premier XPK. Another nostalgic kit for me. It's my first proper kit, and I think that's something that everyone really can relate to. I got them in sort of stages, and I've got a 6-inch tom, which it's like a club or something, in a slightly different finish. But the toms on that kit go 6, 8, 10, 12. 13, 14, 16, 18, and I have two 22 16-inch kick drums. I picked the second kick drum up a couple of years ago for 50 quid, and it's again it's just that kit, those sizes, albeit they're power toms. That kit's 30 years old. It was 30 years old last year actually. I'm never going to get rid of that kit. I love it. Every time I get it out, I think they sound the toms sound better and better. I've had them, I had them straight into the shell. I had them on rims mounts. I just think they've got better over time, and I think everyone remembers with fondness their first proper kit. It wasn't actually my first kit, but it was my first proper one. My very first kit was something that was actually literally going to be thrown in the skip, and someone saved it for me, and I got it and played that for a little while before I was able to afford the behemoth that I ended up with. Speaking of Premier, my Genista, which is as I do these videos, my Genista, two of the toms sit squarely in front of me, staring at me, and I got that in 1995. I got a snare drum in 1994, just after they came out, and in a stroke of genius, for some unknown reason, I got the snare drum in the green, and then the toms and the bass drum in the I can't remember. Is it Terra Verde? Might be Terra Verde. The sort of turquoisey finish. And again, in another stroke of blinding genius, I got a 24 by 18-inch kick drum, which I think was the biggest one that they offered. And then I got a little 10 by I think it's a 10 by 8 standard mounted tom to go on top of it. And that setup was all mounted toms. In fact, even now it's still all mounted toms. A couple of years ago, I found an Orphan 16 in the same finish. So it now goes 10, 12, 14, 16. Nice even spacings. And I think the 10 was a standard tom, standard size tom, and then the 12 and 14 were more a sort of power tommy sort of size. But that was my first pro kit. I think actually it's it's my second. Well, it's my first of one of two birch kits. I have two birch kits. I just remember that the SQ2 is a birch kit as well. Yeah, I mean they're wonderful drums. It's my first pro kit, and it's a kit that I keep meaning in my head to come back out and set up. And for logistical reasons more than anything else, meaning that the bass drum is behind this false wall here, and rather difficult to get to. That's the reason why that kit doesn't come out quite so often. Speaking of birch kits, and this is something I forgot on the previous draft, my SQ2, how can I forget that? I was lucky enough, 10 years ago now, in 2010, I was able to go to the Sonor factory in Germany, and I think just before that, I'd actually reviewed an SQ2 kit, and with Uber Sonor fan Jeff Davenport, who is in the UK, he's the Remo Drum Tuning Workshops guy. And I've known Jeff for a long time. He's a truly wonderful guy, and is absolutely the authority, certainly in this country, I think, of tuning drums. And he's basically the guy, the guy. It's always has people around him. If you go to any of the trade shows over in the UK, Jeff is always the guy with the Remo shirt on and loads of people around him listening, because everyone wants to hear what he has to say, and damn right they should too, because he knows what he's talking about. But I did that review, and I was so thoroughly impressed by these SQ2 drums. And then I went to Germany. Well, I was impressed by them, but I thought, oh, too expensive. I just couldn't afford it at the time. And then I went to Germany, and my mind was convinced. I saw these drums being made, and they were just so wonderful. And the care that was put into making them, and the Sonor guys were so hospitable to me and Jeff as well. When we went over there, because I went with Jeff. That I came home and I kind of made some inquiries, and I found that I was able to get the kit of my choice a little cheaper than retail. And I think it's probably okay for me to admit that 10 years later. But that kit is, and I was kind of, I mean, I've never been a huge Gavin Harrison fan, but actually at that thing in Germany, I ended up spending sort of 2 hours in the back of a people carrier talking to Gavin, and Gavin's someone whose drumming I enjoy an awful lot. But I was kind of sort of inspired by his setup. And so what I did, I ended up ordering 8, 10, 12, 15. And I think I was a little, the floor tom was a little sort of left of centre on that one. But I went 8, 10, 12, 15, 20 by, I think it may be 16, it might be 17, I can't remember without looking. And they're birch shells, and it's the outer ply is Bubinga, which is something I had to look up a while back because I'd forgotten what it was. And listening to my drums when I set them up, and listening to like recordings of Gavin, I'm not saying that. I mean, obviously I don't play like Gavin, but I can definitely hear the similarities between the two kits. You know, more so with that kit, I think, than any other. You know, obviously a lot of people play Tamas and, you know, Genistas and things like that. But with that kit, I can hear the same sort of basic sound in Gavin's kit that I can hear in my kit, and that's got to be encouraging in terms of like, if you want to, if you want to aspire to sound like someone, you go and buy an SQ2 kit, and you know, my drums sound like his drums. You know, it's a testament to how good those drums are. Moving along, another kit which sort of falls under the sort of nostalgic thing for me, but also at the same time not nearly as long, was the get the snare drum out if I can. No, I can't get the snare drum out. It's the Yamaha Club Custom in Orange Swirl. I've said before, Steve John, I'm a massive fan of his. I kind of missed the boat with those drums. I want to say, for the sake of face, that it was because I couldn't really afford the drums at the time. And I think it was actually more probably to do with the fact I was just plain stupid and didn't buy some when they were out. But I managed to pick up the Club Custom kit in 2019. I had one of the snares for a couple of years before that, and they don't tend to come up too often. Although I think earlier this year in 2020, there was a couple of different kits. Different sizes as well, actually. A couple of different kits came up in that finish right at the same time, which was just uncanny. But I always wanted a kit for years, and they're Kapoor shells as well. 12, 16, 22. I want to say 22, 15 on that kick drum. Might be wrong, can't remember. And as I said, they only did the snare drum in one size, and I happened to end up having two of them. And I was going to sell the original, the other one, you know, the spare one. But then what I did was set them up slightly differently. So I'm keeping them both now. I really dig the snare drum, actually. It took me a while to get a sound out of it that I liked. I tried the original one with loads of different Remo head combinations on. Wouldn't work for me. Stuck Evans heads on there. Much better for me on that particular set of drums. I'm not saying Evans are better than Remo. I use both of them, and I'm equally happy with both. But you know, it's what works for whatever drum, and that one worked. That combo worked on that snare drum for me. But the Club Customs are a great drum. I think for me that is a prime example of a drum set that gives me a certain vibe to them, and I certainly, in my head, when I sit down and play them, I feel differently when I play those Club Customs. You know, there's certain drums that I would use for certain applications. If I want a big sort of, if I'm kind of like in a rock mindset, then I'll maybe take out the Granstars or the Artstar IIs, you know, or something along those lines. If I want to be a little bit more sort of soulful, or you know, or maybe a little more thinking in my playing, maybe I'll dig out the Club Customs, or maybe even the Trilogy, which is up there. You know, it's all about just different vibes and things. And I did a video on that a few years ago. It was all about the you know, the different vibe that you get from different drums. I think another kit which I think would probably be an honourable mention is the Tama SLP steel kit. It's a kit I really enjoy, and in fact it's a kit that has the sizes are 13 and 16 on the toms. Now I'm not really I don't normally do bigger than a 12, but I didn't have that option with that kit. But I've got to say that the playing that 13 on that kit really made me appreciate 13-inch toms a lot more. And I really enjoy playing those drums, and I genuinely have like yearnings to play them sometimes, mainly because it's the only metal kit that I've got, and it's just got a different vibe to it. Again, it's just all about a vibe. It has a different vibe to it, and they sound fantastic as well. And they look, I think they look great as just, you know, the flat matte black sort of finish. You know, it's just a different thing. But I just really like those drums. But I mean, they're not. I think they're somewhere between favourite and just another kit. But I think they're great drums anyway. Now I'm going to have a quick look round because I don't want to forget anything this time. Actually, I think another honourable mention, maybe a bit more than honourable mention, is my vintage kit. It's my last sort of actual proper vintage kit. My 1964 Slingerland in oyster pink pearl. Now, funnily enough, that is a 13-inch tom, 13/16, 22 by 14. I don't dig it out very often. I can't remember if I've done a video on it or not. I think I may have done. Just you know, it's just again, it's just got a vibe to it. I think I've got the floor tom on a rims mount because the little spindly, literally straight down legs. There's no bend on them or anything. They're literally just straight down post legs. You know, I put the rims mount on there to make it a little bit more playable. But you know, they're lovely drums. They look great. They were only made, if my memory is right, they only offered them between 1959 and 1967. Slingerland, anyway. Ludwig offered them for 1 year, and I think it was 1959. So I think arguably the Ludwig ones are slightly more rare. There's a couple of those kits in this country. I met a fellow who owned one years and years ago. But they're just great drums. You know, they've got like the tone controls inside them. I think I've got coated heads on top and bottom. I think it may be Emperors on the top and Ambassadors on the bottom. And I've got the matching snare drum, albeit it wasn't original to that kit. It came with the kit when I bought it. But that's the Slingerland Artist one-ply drum, which I've got in the other room. But moving on, and I'm looking around, so I've got, I mean, the Crystal Beats are great drums as well, but I mean, they're kind of, I've got two pearl kits, and somehow I managed to get the same sizes in both kits, but, you know, I mean, they're great drums. The RCI I have is a great kit as well, but, oh, actually, there was another kit, so, this is the 14-inch tom from the Tama Starclassic maple in violet shade, and I think, like many people, I got very, very influenced by looking at catalogues and stuff. I think probably most of us, really, isn't it? And in about 1994, I remember seeing Modern Drummer and pictures of Kenny Aronoff and Joel Rosenblatt, who was the drummer of Spyro Gyra, pictured with maple kits in that finish, and thinking they look so cool, and I would love to have a set of those. And I've still never done it, but I will do it with one of these Tama kits. I haven't decided which one, but I was also very drawn in by the clear heads on the bass drum. I don't know what it was. I still don't know what it is. I just think there's an element of really. I just think it looks cool. You know, having albeit I don't know how much. I don't know whether it still look cool if you've got muffling inside it or not. But certainly for me, in my early 20s, many years ago, looking at the Tama catalogue and seeing the Starclassic maple kit in that finish with a clear bass, two clear bass drum heads with the Starclassic logo on it, not the Tama logo, with the Starclassic logo on the front head. I still think they're very cool, and I was lucky enough to pick that up a couple of years ago. 8, 10, 12, 14 mounted toms. If anyone does know of an orphan 16-inch drum in that finish, I would possibly be very interested. Certainly in the UK or Europe, I would be very interested in maybe purchasing it just so I can round the kit off. As it happens, I did pick up a green sparkle maple kit fairly recently as a trade, mostly as a trade. And that kit's 10, 13, 14, 16, and with and actually, unlike all the other 14s, that one's actually a mounted tom, and that's the drum I'm currently sat behind at the moment. But that's in green sparkle, same shells and everything really, and from roughly the same period as well. I think the violet shade's possibly a little older, but yeah, I've always loved those drums, and I'm not really that thrilled about having a 14-inch floor tom these days. There was a period where I did run with a 14-inch floor tom for a long time actually, but they just don't do it for me anymore. I kind of want to go a little bit lower these days, and I went back to 16s. But yeah, lovely drums. Yeah, so I think the one thing that I am conclusive on is my two favourite kits are indeed my two favourite kits. And the first kit, and this is in no order either. So the first kit is the Tama Star Walnut. I just can't say enough good things about those drums. They sound fantastic. They've got great hardware on them. They look fantastic. I think this is the one kit I have that I've never gigged in the probably 2.5 years that I've owned these drums. I've played them in here, and I took them out once to record an album a couple of years ago, and that's the only time they've been out of the house. But I'm just, to be honest, I'm too scared to take them out. Unfortunately, they did get a little bit of a ding on. I think there's a little ding on the bass drum hoop where I got it knocked the snare drum in here, and there's possibly a little mark on one of the toms where it got pushed into something up on the top shelf. But I'm too scared to take them out and play the damn things, because I don't want to hurt them. But I just love the sound of them. I have a few walnut snare drums. I've got at least 2 walnut snare drums. They're both Craviottos. But it's just something about these drums. I mean, they've got a great feel to them. They've got a great vibe to them. They sound fantastic. And they managed to keep... I keep looking up there because that's where the toms are. They keep... I found that they keep their tensioning really well, and I remember taking them out for the recording of that album in 2017, and then I realised about 6 months later I hadn't touched them, and I took I think it was the 10-inch tom, but I took it down and hit it, and it was still, it was still in tune. It still sounded great, and I'm like, it's one of those things that I don't generally buy drum. If I buy drums, I take them out and play them. But it's one of those drums. It's like the Timeless Timber that I had, the first one. I take it out occasionally, just look at it and go, and then put it away again. These ones, the toms live up there. The bass drum is over there somewhere. I will get them down and play them again, but it's just something about them. I've had my issues with Tama. I won't buy any new Tama ever again, and that was a separate video which some of you may have seen. But I can't fault those drums. They just sound fantastic. They really do. And I love them. I really do. I mean, I can't. I think in some ways I find them slightly more appealing than my other favourite kit, which many of you I'm sure will have guessed by now which one it is. But I think that's only because the tom sizes for the Star kit are 10, 12, 16, which are kind of my sizes. And it's just that's the one thing that I find slightly more appealing than my other favourite kit, which is the Craviotto kit. Everything I just said about 13-inch toms and stuff. So this one basically, the toms run 13, 14, 16, and as with all of the other 14-inch toms, except for this one, I turned that into a floor tom as well. Although it'd be a slightly sort of odd size one because it's like a 14 by 10 drum, and you can possibly just about see it setting up there. I think that's a 14 by 10. It might actually be a 14 by 9 looking at it. I've never stopped to actually see how deep those drums are. So actually, I'm going to say it's a 13 by 9 and a 14 by 9. And I wouldn't generally ever use a 14 as a first rack tom, albeit on this kit I actually have just to try it out. But generally, I'm more comfortable with the 14 on the floor. I've also got two bass drums with that kit, a 22 by, it's either 15 or 16, I can't remember. I've got a... So this is where you Americans get your sizes wrong, because it's not a 6.5-inch size head by 14 inches deep. It's head first, okay? But in this particular instance, this is where that really matters, because it's a 16-inch head size, but it's an 18-inch drum. So if you get all North American on me, then that's going to turn that into a completely wrong, different size drum. Now, it's a bit of an odd size. I've got a 16 by 16 Manu Cache bass drum with a little junior hip gig set, and that generally plays like a cardboard box. It's horrible. The Craviotto, on the other hand, it's 2 inches deeper, but it's got wood hoops on it, and that plays like an actual proper bass drum. It's amazing the difference in feel between the two of them. It's got an internal shock mounted. It's a reverse wired speaker inside it as well, so it's internally mic'd. It's got a lot of that sort of 808 sub sound to it. It's a lovely drum to play. It's a fantastic drum sound wise as well. And also with that kit I have the matching snare drum, which is a 13 by 7 maple with Yamaha wood hoops on it, and to top it all off I have an 18-inch shelled with a 20-inch head gong drum as well. And unfortunately, it's one of those things I can't Had I had this kit, had I had that kit when this room wasn't full of drums, I probably would have been able to fit the whole thing in. These days I can't fit the gong drum in as well, which is a real shame. But it's just I've got so many different sizes and options, and just different drums anyway within that Craviotto kit. Obviously, I guess I kind of known, I hate saying it like that, but I'm kind of known for having a lot of Craviotto drums. That is no different at all. I just love that kit. They're all maple shells. They are in whitewash finish, which basically is a sort of a very lightweight. It's a whitewash, really, isn't it? It's a very thin coating of white over the top of the wood, so you can see the grain through the whitewash. You know, they're just like the perfect drums. They really are. I mean, it just. I remember sitting on the floor when I first got the kit. I mean, I bought it in several sort of pieces as they were made offered. Well, they were made available to me. But I remember sitting in the other room, changing their heads, and I just sat there on the floor, and I hit the floor tom with my finger, and it just resonated for ages. And I was just with my finger, and I'm like, these drums are just fantastic, and. I love playing those drums. You know, it's the same with the Star kit. I love playing them. I have gigged that kit. I've gigged it many times. I would say many times. I've gigged it on numerous occasions. I love gigging it, but it's just one of those things that you know. I would never have that kit if I didn't have this studio space, because no one really in their right mind is going to spend that much money on a set of drums and then take them out and gig them down the local pub. I bought those drums primarily with the mind that I have this room, and if I never take them out of this room, it wouldn't matter because I would still be able to play them. And as I said, as it transpired, I have taken them out many times to play them and gig them, and I've taken the gong drum out as well, you know, and I've taken out as big a kit as I could possibly get away with. But I love the fact with that kit, because it's got the 16-inch bass drum. If I want to have a little sort of, you know, mini portable kit, I can take the 13 and the 14 out, because the 14's on legs, and the 16-inch kit, and I've got this like little mini kit thing, and I'll tune the 13 up a little bit higher, and I'll tune the 14 down a little bit lower, and it's a great working little set. And obviously with, I think as I spoke about in another recent video, you know, that's the reason why I ended up with so many toms, is I love the fact that, you know, if you get 10, 12, 16, then you've got 10, 12, 16 as a kit, 10 and 16, 12 and 16. You've basically got 3 different kit size options all within that one little group, which you know you can buy together and, you know, do with as you please. But I just, there's nothing that I don't like about that Craviotto kit. The sizes, I would in fact I would love to get a 10 or 11 and a 12, you know, and have maybe the 12 as the first tom. But, you know, I mean, well, A, it's not going to happen financially. B, it might be a little bit difficult these days to match the drums anyway. Although Jack Mayer does a fantastic job. It was Jack Mayer that painted the drums. So I've no doubt at all that he could do it. But, you know, it's just one of those things. I think just, you know, those drums, they're great as they are. They probably don't need it, you know, smaller sizes anyway. But you know, as I said, it's just, there's nothing I don't love about them. And that's really that, I think. I mean, the only other kit really that I think I probably forgot that I should mention is the Sakai Trilogy kit, which the floor tom, which is up there, which is in mod orange. And I got that. I got that kit really because it came up on a sort of blowout special, and I paid what I paid for that kit now. So what I paid for that kit, you still can't really even get the same kit second hand now. It was stupidly cheap, and it's in mod orange as well. And I kind of got that for two reasons. One, because I never thought I would get the... it was kind of orange, and it was kind of my sort of wave at Steve Jordan, because I thought I'd never get a club custom in the orange swirl. And secondly, because many years ago I was actually going to get... I spoke to someone about getting a mod orange kit, and I said I was very interested, and that was on the Saturday, and I said it to the guy face to face, and he said call him on the Monday, so I did. I called him on the Monday. He didn't pick up, and then when I finally got through to him, I think it was either later on the Monday or on the Tuesday, he then had the nerve to lie to me and said that, oh, I didn't think you were that interested. And I never had anything to do with him again. He's dead now, and I'll leave it up to you in the UK to work out who that might have been. Personally, I thought the guy was a douche after that, and I never had anything to do with him. But that was my sort of homage to why I got the mod orange kit. But I mean, there are other kits in here which I haven't mentioned. I think the key thing really for me in all of this is I have the drum kits that I have because I genuinely have some sort of affinity for them. The ones that I've mentioned here now are the ones that have a special place for me. But I think now I can honestly say, I probably wouldn't. I don't think I would sell any of the kits that I've got now. Even the little Monocache hip gig kit, it barely gets played, but it's useful when it's needed. Basically, because you can carry the whole kit in 2 bags. And in 2 hands, and it's useful for when you're doing a gig in someone's back garden or something, and you can stick a mic in the bass drum, and it sounds all right and everything. And despite the fact it feels horrible to play the bass drum, but everything kind of I like everything that I've got, and I don't really now. I can't see myself getting any more kits now. I think that's probably safe to say. The one caveat to that would be, if I could get hold of a Custom Z, I would love a Pearl Custom Z kit or CZX from the 80s and early 90s. That's probably the one kit that I would. I don't have enough room in here now anyway. In fact, if I put like one case or one box out of place, suddenly the whole place looks a mess. But at the same time, I would probably make room for that if I could get hold of one and it wasn't stupidly priced. I would love a Custom Z. I think that's probably my one remaining sort of bucket list set of drums that I would love. For the same reasons that I always wanted a Granstar and Artstar II. It was just from the same era, and for the same reasons as well. And I don't think I'm the only one on that one. I think many of the people that I've spoken to, friends of mine and stuff, I think they kind of all felt the same way about those particular types of drums as well. But anyway, I hope that was enjoyable. I hope that was a bit of fun. Kind of, I suppose, it was something I should have done before. But there you go. Thanks for watching. I'll see you again.